Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Well, today's Thursday, February 12th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. I'm here in Los Angeles for the NBA All-Star Weekend. In North Carolina, early voting has started, and you have some crucial races that are taking place. We'll talk with the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party about what their plan is to take power back in the Tar Heel state. Also, residents of Louisiana's Cancer Alley are celebrating a huge victory as it relates to environmental warfare. We'll talk with the executive director of a faith-based group leading the fight. 10 NFL openings this year and no black head coaches hired. We'll talk with DeMaurice Smith, former head of the National Football Players Association, about that. Also, a Trump nominee with a history of racism and bigotry. Of course, Donald Trump is trying to put him in the administration. We'll show you an exchange in the Senate. Plus, day 2 of the march from Wilson, North Carolina to Raleigh, North Carolina. Bishop William Barber's repairs of the breach. They are leading that. Plus, in our Black Star Marketplace segment, we'll talk to the co-founder of Affirmation Effect, who turns her son's confidence-building efforts into a brand that spreads positivity. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
North Carolina, huge elections taking place that state. It is a state that Democrats need to actually turn around. Remember, 2008, President Barack Obama won North Carolina by 14,100 votes. Big wins in November 2024. Democrats were elected the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor, attorney general races, key critical races, but Republicans still control the legislature. So the question is, how are Democrats in North Carolina going to reverse the fortunes? How are they going to put the Tar Heel state in the blue column? Let's talk about that right now with the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, Anderson Clayton, joining us from Raleigh. How you doing?
I'm good, and we're here from Greensboro. We just got done doing a march with students here at A&T, so we're excited to be coming to you, and thanks for having us on the show, Roland.
So let's start right there. When we talk about, we had the lawsuit there where these college students sued The judge turned them back as relates to no early voting sites. What Republicans did was they took the power out from on the governor's hand and gave it to the state auditor. And so that's because Republicans dominate the state legislature. We know that they've had partisan gerrymandering, and now you have a Republican-led North Carolina Supreme Court. And so so what are your targets? Because listen, how many votes do you need to take control of the House or the Senate? What is your plan? Who are the folks you're targeting? How are you trying to reverse those fortunes? Because that's the only way you can really change things, because they're going to keep playing around with the rules. Again, taking it from the governor, then giving the state board of elections the power to the state auditor. Give me a break.
No, I agree with you. I mean, we've seen Republicans try to do anything that they can to hold power away from voters in the state. And that's exactly what they did by trying to take away and succeeding right in stripping the power away from the governor to appoint the state board of elections. North Carolina, we have been extremely focused, though, on taking back the North Carolina State Supreme Court. When in 2002, when Democrats had control of the North Carolina State Supreme Court, Democrats ruled that partisan and racial gerrymandering was illegal. And for the first time in 2022, Democrats sent 7 members to Congress on North Carolina's behalf and 7 Republicans to Congress on North Carolina's behalf for our 14 congressional seats overall, because Republicans had to redraw our state and House and Senate and congressional maps that year, thanks to a Democratic state Supreme Court. In 2022, though, unfortunately, that November, we lost the North Carolina State Supreme Court, and we have been working on a trajectory to take that court back, because we know that until we have that lever or that branch of power in the state, we are not going to see ungerrymandered races in our state legislature all the way up to our congressional level as well. And we know that Republicans in North Carolina have been dead set on gerrymandering out of Congress, black representatives specifically, looking at them targeting Don Davis's district alone just this last legislative session. And so we did step 1 in the plan to take back the North Carolina State Supreme Court in 2024 when we re-elected Justice Allison Riggs by 734 votes. And Roland, thank you for having her on your show. Thank you for highlighting the fact that Republicans were trying to subvert democracy in that election cycle. We have one more seat up for Democrats in 2026 on the North Carolina State Supreme Court, and we are going to re-elect Justice Anita Earls again this year. And in 2028, Republicans have 3 seats up on the North Carolina State Supreme Court that Democrats can take, and we can reverse partisan and racial gerrymandering that will allow us to not only give power back at the congressional level again, but also at the state House and the state Senate level. But in 2026, we are going to focus on not only electing our good old Governor Roy Cooper to the U.S. Senate, but also Justice Anita Earls back onto the North Carolina State Supreme Court, and focusing on expanding the map in our state House right now, hoping to get a working minority even more than what we have currently with the broken supermajority. Because, North Carolina, it's a heavily gerrymandered state. And I think that we have got a good chance at making it so that Josh Stein's veto power holds, and that we're also surprising people across the state. But it is going to be a really hard fight to take a chamber in 26 for us, thanks to Republicans in our state legislature right now.
Well, and that's why, listen, you have to break it up. And so, for instance, what is the Republican number? What's their how many more Republicans are in the Senate and in the House compared to Democrats in North Carolina?
Democrats right now control 49 seats in the state House, and we also control 19 seats in our state Senate. So we have a broken supermajority in the state House. We need, though, 60 seats in the state House in order to be able to take the state House. And so for us you have 49 right now in the House. Yes, sir.
So you need plus 11. Obviously,
yes,
may not. You can't get that 11 this year. But what's your target? Is it 5 or 6 that you really are locked and loaded in to want to win in November?
We have 5 holds that we have to keep. So we had Democrats like Dante Pittman, who is one of our youngest state legislators in North Carolina, that won an R+3 seat in the state House in 2024. And that will be a competitive election district again, or seat for our election up this year again. And so we have seats like his that we need to hold. There are 5 of those. And then we have 5 seats in the state House that we need to take this year. And that will bring us up to 54 seats in the state House. And it will give us the ability to look towards 60 60 seats in 28 for us, hopefully. North Carolina is the only place that you're going to have a state legislative chamber that can flip before 2030. But to your point, it's incremental changes.
I want, and that is critically important. And I'm going to go back to what you talked about the Supreme Court. When Sherry Beasley lost that race, had she won, Democrats could have had a 6-1 majority on the state Supreme Court. When Democrats had a majority, they ruled against racial gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering. They were stopping a lot of the crazy shenanigans that the Republicans were doing in the legislature. Now it's 5-2. So you're right. Defend Anita Earls.
Hakeem Jeffries would be Speaker of the House, right? Roland Martin. We would have a Democratic check on this administration right now had Sherry Beasley won that North Carolina Supreme Court fight, and she lost that seat by 401 votes in 2020, and we came back in 2024 and won one by 734 votes that year.
And so to that particular point, so you defend Anita Earls in 26. 3 of those Republican seats are up in 2028. And so I'm constantly trying to get our folks to understand why those state Supreme Court races matter. And so let's talk about winning by 700 votes. And then, of course, her losing by 401. One of the things that I really honing on is how critical East North Carolina is, the Black Belt North Carolina. And I didn't understand it. I was yelling and screaming it. But you look at the campaign of Biden and Kamala Harris, Democrats spend so much time, energy, and money and resources in Western North Carolina. And I get it. That's where your largest cities are. But when you look at the number of African Americans who are not voting, you've got rich area in East North Carolina. And I have been telling preachers, I've been telling Divine Nine, I've been telling everybody that if you truly want to reverse what's happening in North Carolina, I said lock and load on East North Carolina. Go to those small towns, go to Rocky Mount, go to those places, and go to those rural places. Have the conversation, because if you're able to increase turnout there, Democrats can dominate North Carolina.
Yeah. So many people think when I talk about rural North Carolina, I'm talking about white rural North Carolina. And what they forget about this state is that out of the 18 majority minority counties that we have in North Carolina, 18 of them are rural. And they exist in that northeastern corridor, the Black Belt region of our state, which is why the state party has spent time and energy and money, honestly, investing in regional organizing directors for both northeastern and southeastern North Carolina. Because to your point, our party has lost so much ground there because voters have felt disaffected. They feel like politics does not work for them. And that is thanks to gerrymandering in our state legislature, making people feel alienated, right, from the folks that represent them right now in Raleigh. And that's why I talked about Dante Pittman earlier. He is a representative out of Wilson County. And he's got a little bit of Nash in his district too. And so he understands what it's like to be in that region of the state. And especially when a lot of the policies that have been coming out of Raleigh have basically told Eastern North Carolina that, your population's declining and you need to land the plane slowly somehow. And we need an economy that wants to work for everybody in North Carolina, regardless of your zip code. And that's the message that we really need to be giving to folks in the eastern part of the state right now, that we believe that they deserve a future and that young people shouldn't have to leave it.
So your primary is March 3rd, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Texas primary is the same. And one of the things that I have been imploring my audience is that first and foremost, if you take the organizational infrastructure, if you take churches, if you take Prince Hall Mason, if you take, again, Divine Nine, if you take Links, if you take all these different groups, and I said that politicians, county commissioners, city council members, school board members should be, I said there should be weekly town halls happening somewhere every single week, connecting the dots, because let's just be honest, there's a lot of people, rural and urban folk are so busy. They've got families, they've got their jobs. They're not living and breathing this stuff like we are, but we do have to connect the dots when people understand what's happening in Washington, D.C. can impact North Carolina. What's happening in Raleigh impacts the cities and towns in the state. And so we really have to, I just think, go back to citizenship education, really walking people through so they understand that while they may say that one vote doesn't matter, how that one vote coupled with another and another and another can then be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 that can actually change the politics of a seat of a town, a city, a county, and the state.
No, it can every step of the way, and I agree with you. And one day, Roland Martin, we'd love to have you in North Carolina to help bring some of our folks together. I did a 55 county tour of rural North Carolina just last summer of going out and doing those town halls and trying to meet with folks intentionally. And you got a lot of fans in the eastern part of the state, and they're listening to you, and they love to be able to have you down here with us to be our main attraction, help get folks out and get people involved, because we need folks that want to bring that want to put more politics right in front of folks, and the people that are characters in order to do that. And you're one of those folks for us.
Well, we plan to do that. My team right now is in Wilson and Raleigh with Bishop William Barber in Repairs of the Breach. We've been live streaming their march. We'll be covering it, streaming it tomorrow, then covering, of course, the big rally on Saturday. I will be back on March 26th. My fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, they're holding the regional conference in Raleigh on March 26th. I'll be speaking there. We definitely plan on, like we did when Vice President Kamala Harris was running. We definitely want to come back, because when I was there, we did a show Elizabeth City. We were in Fayetteville State. We were there in Rocky Mount. We were I think we had 4 different shows, and so the idea is, and I've been talking with the Cooper campaign as well. The idea is being able to bring this show to serve as that rallying point, but also again to really educate folk to understand why voting matters, because there were just way too many African Americans who did not vote in 2024, and that could have been the difference. But as Bishop Barber says, it's a whole lot of low wage, folks who are out there working their butts off, who sit out elections. Now, if we can all of a sudden increase that by 2 to 5%, that actually is the winning coalition.
We're going to do our work in the trenches this year, and I know that it's the Democratic Party's responsibility to make sure that we get out Black voters in North Carolina, but also that we're bringing these candidates. We have 170 out of 170 legislative seats filled this year, and I'm going to make sure that there's somebody in every county in the state out there talking to people about how they want to make their lives better, because I know that so many people have an idea not to believe right now that politics can actually help folks. But I believe that good government and good public servants are what we're trying to send back to Raleigh and Washington, D.C., and you all can be a part of that. So if you are listening to this and you want to get involved, please go to ncdp.org. Reach out to me. My email is on the state party website. If you've got any questions or you want to get involved. And a very big thank you. I'm sorry to be coming to y'all from my car, but
it's all good. We're used to it.
The students that helped organize this march today on A&T's campus, I have been inspired and feel so much hope that people are going to come out. There was almost 150 students that just went in and voted in Greensboro because their voting site got stripped off their campus for the primary. The state board is getting a lawsuit thrown at them, though, from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and college voters across North Carolina that are trying to stand up against that, though. And to your point, Roland, we had a federal judge just last week rule against that. We are still going to try to change that for the general election. And so this fight is not over with, and we're just getting started with it to try to preserve this voting site for the general, too.
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was actually with those A&T students, marching with them to the polls in their rally. So I'm quite familiar with that. Anderson, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. We'll be chatting soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. I'm going to bring in my panel right now. Of course, Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show, Sirius XM Radio, joining us out of D.C., Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, D.C. as well, Dr. Nola Haynes, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, D.C. as well. Reese, I'll start with you. The thing here is, and it's just, I'm going to keep yelling it, I don't care, and that is it has to be micro. That what we have to do is we've got to stop having these broad conversations, having people talk about, oh, here are our GOTV efforts. I'm like, no, go to the Board of Elections, pull the data, look at the precincts, look where the people already are, okay? And so my whole deal is if you're talking about a voting strategy, first of all, you start with people who are already registered. And then you say, okay, how many of those folks turned out by precinct? The data is there. It shows whether they voted or not. And then you begin to say, hey, we're going to go door to door. We're going to go block by block, go by neighborhood, and touching those folks and talking with them. All of a sudden, if you say, hey, we want to see, you know, a 30% increase in the people who didn't turn out. You multiply that by 100 precincts around the state, all of a sudden you're talking about significant numbers. I just think that a lot of these groups out there that are doing get out the vote efforts, they're just doing them wrong. They're just trying to, let's just hope people show up re-registered.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, the strategy that you just talked about is what my husband did. He is mayor of our town, and he pulled the data from the county to see who in our area, who his constituents were, their history of voting, and obviously he prioritized people that vote before, you know, going to people who never vote in the town or people who aren't even registered. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a finite amount of time. You have to prioritize your resources. You hit your high impact people, and then you get your reach people, and down the line, there is data there, and Republicans have perfected it. Republicans have millions of us in a database, and they mark some of us as dissuasion campaign people, and they have some people as persuasion campaign people. But Democrats do tend to throw spaghetti at the wall, and we get inundated with text messages all the freaking time. And so there is this decentralized outreach that's about fundraising all the time. Give me $5, give me $5, as opposed to this really strategic, holistic, well-funded operation to reach the people that need to be reached, and prioritize people that you can actually get. We only have to get our capacity. We don't even have to put all this effort into people who are never going to vote, who aren't even registered, when you have plenty of people there who are registered and that are gettable voters.
I was having a conversation, Greg. I was having a conversation with a group of preachers, and what I said to them is, is Greg there? Okay, Greg is not there. All right, so I'll go to Nola. The thing that I was telling the preachers, listen, if you say, how many churches are there in a precinct? And let's just say it's 10. We know in some places it's a hell of a lot more than that. All of a sudden, if I've got 10 churches in a precinct, and the precinct has 700 voters, that means that all you're asking the church to do is to say, hey, I need your church to touch 70 people, not 70 church members. And the reason I'm saying that is because we need folk to get out of their comfort zones. So all of a sudden, if the churches say, all right, in the precinct, we're going to take this 6-block radius, you take a radius, take a year radius, now all of a sudden the precinct's covered. And I need people to understand that this is not, oh, let's do this for the benefit of the Democratic Party. No, let's do this for the benefit of Black people.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think a great deal about, and I'm happy that you brought up the churches specifically, is I am also hearing from a lot of people that some folks actually not necessarily like what Trump is doing, but they like some of the things that he's doing. And a lot of conservatives, a lot of Black conservatives don't mind what he's doing. So we have a situation where you have church folk, you know, and on social media every Sunday, you will see an amazing, beautiful speech from at least 3 to 4 different pastors that are going at Trump, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And you can pretty much rely on, you know, who those pastors are going to be. But to your point, I mean, even where I'm staying right now in Maryland, there's at least 5 churches in a 2-block radius, right? So why aren't the people mobilized inside these churches? Could it be the pastors are not necessarily speaking about these issues because maybe they are in agreement in some way about some of these issues? And I'm happy we're talking about it because, Roland, I know you see it. This friction with the diaspora wars and Black Americans and all this stuff is escalating. Black nationalism is looking very different from the way that it looked in the 60s and the 70s. It is about exclusion. It is about difference. It's not about survival. It's not about community. So this is a real point. Like, why aren't the churches mobilized? It starts from the head. So what is happening in these churches? And I think that is a very good.
Well, here's the deal. A number are So I'm not saying that they're not. But what I want people to understand is what I'm really talking about is the overall Black infrastructure. What I need people to understand is that we have a litany of institutions. So let's just take, Anderson was just talking about A&T. Okay, you're talking several thousand students. Now what that means is on the campus of North Carolina A&T, okay, what now is the organizing infrastructure to get those students to vote? So if I'm on the A&T campus, I'm saying, okay, what organizations on campus are part of our electoral strategy? So, okay, the Alphas, the Kappas, the Deltas, the AKs, the Sigmas, the Zetas, the Iotas, the Omegas. Okay, do we have Masonic chapter? Okay, what is this theater group? What is this group? What is this group? So now all of a sudden you have all of these student leaders. And now you say, hey, this is what we need you to do as an organization. Now, then it's like, okay, these organizations represent X number of students. Okay, how many students then on the campus are not tied to an organization? The data is sitting right there. So you then say, okay, organizational leaders, I need you to do a survey of your members to go through and see who is registered. Who is registered to vote in North Carolina? Because if you're a student, you could be registered where you go to school, or you might be registered back at home. But somebody has to have the data. Not, well, we mentioned it. No. Literally doing that work. And then, okay, so here are 4,000 students who are not affiliated with an organization. Okay, then these are the folks who are going to go after those students to actually do that. I just think that what drives me crazy, Reese, and I've spent so much time covering marches, covering rallies, covering GOTV efforts, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, ain't no data collection. So how the hell do you even know? And so what I'm talking about here, you don't need the permission of the chair of the Democratic Party in North Carolina. You don't need the permission of the Republican chair. This is simply what organizations can do. So I need Black people to recognize that we have significant organizational infrastructure in our community. The problem is our infrastructure is focused insular, only on their individual organizational concerns and not the broader Black community's concerns.
Well, that's true. That's true. There's still a lot of people have their own fiefdoms and their own gatekeeping that happens, and that's not necessarily productive. And so, yes, there should be marching orders, and it's not a pecking order. It's just everybody has a role to play. And I think that nitty gritty data collection and data analysis part is not really the fun, sexy work that people like to engage in. And it does force people to kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit more. But I think that we have to play some catch up, and it would be nice to kind of get ahead of what the Republicans are doing. There was a lot of talk in the 2024 election about how Donald Trump and all of the Republicans, they didn't have massive get out the vote operations, and they didn't have massive field things like what the Democrats did. And they still won. Now, you can believe that the election was stolen in terms of Donald Trump, but they won the popular vote in the House as well.
Actually, Reese, this was the mistake. What people kept saying was his campaign didn't have it. What they didn't realize was they had farmed that out. So, okay, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, y'all are going to drive the 1824 voters. So they took it. So what they did was they used organizational infrastructure as its extensions of the campaign to do that very thing. What I'm saying to Black people, we don't need to wait for the party. We don't need, what I'm talking about right now is we don't have to wait for the party to do it. We could literally just do it. And that's what I'm telling Black people. Don't wait for the party. We should be doing it ourselves. And then now we, as Black people, as Black organizations, we now have the data for the next issue. So when there's a concern about something being built in our neighborhood, we have the names and the phone numbers and the emails to say, hey, we need you to come out to speak up for this or against this. And that's what I'm saying.
No, and I 100% agree. I think if you wait for a party to give their blessing when their priorities are not always the same as our priorities, particularly when it comes to Black organizations. I remember being at the White House and I ran into some Black organizations and I'm like, oh, you must be rolling up the dough because the campaign has raised all this money, and they're like, say what now? And so no, we cannot wait for the benevolence of the party. We cannot wait for the party to bestow permission or even infrastructure on us. We have to build ourselves. And if we don't, then we are going to be waiting hat in hand to try to get the scraps compared to what these other white organizations and these consultants and these ad buying firms get.
Yep. And Greg Carr joins us. And Greg, my whole deal also is for Black folks, when we raise money, we keep it. I go back to Win with Black Men. There was a very prominent individual who came up to me, who was involved with the Win with Black Women call and was very upset, said that, the Harris Finance Committee was mad because out of all the groups that raised money, we were the only ones who kept some of the money. And I said, yeah, I know, because I'm the one who said, let's do it. And this person was like, that wasn't right. I said, bullshit, it wasn't right. And I said, and guess what? I'm going to do it again. I said, let me tell you something. Here's what I'm not going to do, because we raised $1.5 million. I said, I'm not going to raise $1.5 million and hand to a campaign and then beg a white Democratic strategist, can you send some back? No, hell no. We kept $450,000 of it and distributed that money specifically to Black organizations. What I believe that should be happening right now, this is February 12th, what should be happening right now, Win with Black Women, Win with Black Men, other groups should be saying our target goal is to raise $5, $7, $10 million. And what we're going to do is we're going to fund it. We're going to run our own campaigns, our own commercials. We're going to give money to boots on the ground for door to door. And so if we're going to be asking, so Black folks, and I've said to Black people, don't send the money to a party. Don't send it to a candidate. Send it to a Black Voters Matter. Send it to people who you're going to have on the ground. And so this is what I am calling for our people to do. And because what that then does is that now changes the game to where we're not sitting around, oh my goodness, it's August, it's September, it's October. Can y'all please bring us some yard signs? Ooh, can y'all please pay our people so they're not just volunteering? Damn that. We can do it ourselves because we're giving the money. I'm just saying redirect it specifically to Black groups.
Absolutely, Roland. And as you know better than most, that would be returning to our strategy that shifted only in the last couple of generations. Happy Negro History Week, by the way. We are in the literal week 100 years ago where Carl Woodson started this, but we now call Black History Month. This is literally the week between the birthdays of Lincoln and Fred Douglass where we have it. And it's a good moment to remember exactly what you're saying. This wouldn't be breaking with tradition. It would be returning to tradition. We are all familiar with 1964 in Mississippi, the Mississippi Freedom Democrats. They didn't wait on the Democratic Party. In fact, the Democratic Party was changed because of independent organizing. SNCC and everybody in Mississippi. What may be not as well known is that in that same summer of 1964, right in North Carolina, northeast North Carolina, specifically Halifax County, in fact, a group of Black folk who built something that was joined by whites and by Native Americans in North Carolina, because we know that there's a significant Native American population there as well, created something called Freedom Days. It was a voter registration drive and movement that they held through the summer of 1964, as our friend and brother Bishop William Barber, of course, is having the big movement now between Wilson, North Carolina, and the state capitol there. Freedom Days. And what did they do? And this was chronicled, by the way, in the Carolina Times, which I'll come back to in about 30 seconds, but they registered voters, they knocked on doors, they did all of that work. This was not touched or coordinated by or with the Democratic Party, and it was in the tradition of what was going on in South Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia. Black folk never depended on the party for anything. Finally, if you want to read about Freedom Days, and here's where the importance of the Black Star Network comes in. It is chronicled in the Carolina Times. That was one of the black newspapers in North Carolina. Of course, I think it stopped printing around 2020, but it had been in existence since 1937. Black folk ain't never waited on the Democrats. This is a recent phenomenon. Let's return to how we used to do it. That's when we made the most progress.
Absolutely, and I just want people listening to understand. If you are in any of these groups, you need to be going to your next meeting raising these questions. You need to be saying to leadership, what are we actually doing? Listen, I said it point blank. You've got in Tarrant County, Texas, and there was a reason I called out the AKAs in Tarrant County, because Elisa Simmons is a black woman county commissioner, AKA, who had her seat gerrymandered by those white racists on the Tarrant County Board of County Commissioners. Now she is running for county judge. She's running against that white supremacist leader who leads it. And what I've said is, if you're AKAs in Tarrant County, I don't give a damn what y'all got going on. Your number one priority for AKAs in Tarrant County, and I dare say to the sisters next door in Dallas County, y'all should be completely going all out to say, we're going to put one of our own in as the county judge. Tarrant County is the last large red county in the state. Tarrant County is where that racist ass district attorney has been trying to put Crystal Mason in prison for the last 9 years for casting a ballot that was never actually even counted. So yeah, I when I call out groups, I'm saying that's what should be happening. And so members should be saying, leadership, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I'll say this, if you are in an organization and your leadership is unwilling to actually take up the mantle, well, then go rogue and create your own entity of members to say, we're going to do it. See, I'm just not of the opinion of asking permission and waiting for permission. Because what everybody watching and listening needs to understand, that there's no facet of your life that politics does not touch. There is no facet. You can sit here and think that, oh, I'm my own man, I'm my own woman, I pull myself up by my bootstraps. Oh, no, I dug it out of the mud. You can say all that bullshit you want to, but that's a lie. Because you know what? Elon Musk is not the richest person in the world without government help. You want to talk about technology companies? Do you want to understand how much corporate welfare the oil and gas industry gets from the federal government and state government every single year? You want to talk about tax increment financing districts that benefit the companies inside of that? That's also, again, that is a tax increment financing district. And Reese, you know all about the money. That is an entity that only government can create to say any taxes paid in this zone will go back into that zone for infrastructure improvements, things along those lines. That's a government creation. We just had Donald Trump today make it clear that the Environmental Protection Agency is not going to be dealing with the issue of gas emissions, things along those. That's government. And so I'm sick of all these yahoos running around talking about, oh yeah, do for self, do for self, do for self. We don't need government. We don't need handouts. Every time one of these silly ass Negroes hops they punk ass on YouTube or on radio or on television or anywhere or the barbershop on the corner saying dumb shit like, oh, that's right. You know, we do for self, do for self. We don't need no help. We can do it all by ourselves. Well, guess what? These white folks are lining up in Washington, D.C., in state capitals, in county commissioner meeting, in city hall meetings, and school board meeting, realizing that we can get resources from government. So we gotta be real stupid, Reese, to say we just gonna forego the billions upon billions of dollars that we help pay into this system in order so we can make ourselves feel good by saying we gonna do for self.
Yeah, that's real dumb. I mean, these folks did not get there off of meritocracy and sheer grit. They got there because they got the connections and they went out and got it. And a lot of times we have been or people have tried to trick Black people into thinking that volunteering, being underpaid, and grinding through being undervalued is noble. And that shows how pure our intentions are. And we do everything for the culture. And these motherfuckers is laughing all the way to the bank. I see it on social media all the time when somebody's pay gets put on blast and it's a Black person or a person of color, and you got all the white boys on there talking shit. Oh, they didn't get some money, da 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 da. And then these motherfuckers is getting 10, 15, 20, $30,000 for the same shit that they trying to blast the Black people over. And so it's a lot of money out there. And we seem to be the only ones that people look at us like, well, why are you getting the money? What is your problem? No, get the damn money. If we don't get it, they for damn sure gonna get it.
Yeah, and I just want people to understand. Again, I covered City Hall in Fort Worth. I covered county government in Austin, Texas. I've covered City Hall in Dallas, Chicago, state government, and federal government. What do y'all think lobbyists are for? What do you think they get paid millions of dollars to stop legislation or push through legislation to get tax breaks and other things? And so again, if any Yahoo yelling do for self starts running their mouth, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Politics is about the distribution of resources, taxpayer-funded resources. And so, as Frank Lucas said, I'm going to get that money. Well, you know what? If they are going to petition the government to build up their neighborhoods, to build up their companies, then why in the hell would we check out of a system where they are benefiting from? That's just like giving free money away and you get no return. Nah, damn that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do it. I want to switch topics. We've been covering what's happening in Louisiana with Cancer Alley. And of course, Donald Trump and his shameful administration, of course, pulled out of a particular lawsuit as it relates to what was going on in Cancer Alley. Those folks continue to fight. They've been battling. And so they have a win now under their belt. And I want to talk about that because it really is critically important. With their law, a judge ruled that groups representing the residents can move forward with their landmark lawsuit. It seeks to impose a pause on toxic industrial plants located in 2 majority Black districts in St. James Parish. Cancer Alley is a corridor along the Mississippi River, folks, between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, home to 150 industrial facilities that produce a quarter right there along of the nation's petrochemicals, disproportionately impacting African Americans. Joining us right now. All right, so we have an audio issue with our guest. So let's do this here. Let's go to a quick break. We come back. We hopefully have that fixed. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Succession. We're hearing that word pop up a lot these days as our country continues to fracture and divide. But did you know that that idea, essentially a breaking up of the USA, has been part of the public debate since long before and long after the Civil War, right up to today? On our next show, you'll meet Richard Crichton, the author of this book, who says breaking up this great experiment called America might not be such a bad thing. That's on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're still getting audio straight up from one of our guests for Cancer Alley, so we'll have them soon. But how many times have I told y'all Donald Trump welcomes white supremacists in his administration? Well, guess what? Jeremy Carl is a Trump nominee for Assistant Secretary of the State for International Organizations. The role involves managing relations with policies towards the United Nations and other agencies. And during his confirmation hearing, Senator Chris Murphy asked him some basic questions about his beliefs regarding the erasure of white culture.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more.
But you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those are being erased.
Music can be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized, and I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
Well, I'm way over my time. I think you're struggling to answer this question, right? Because underlying your beliefs is a sentiment that white culture is just simply better.
Greg, what was that white boy talking about?
I love it. I love it, and I love him. I absolutely embrace them. I'll tell you why. Because that's the naked face that we all learned from kindergarten through now. That's American history. I know that people will push back against me, and I love and welcome and embrace them, and I want them to do that so that I can take them every word of every sentence of every paragraph of every page of every book they've ever read in this funky settler crime country. All that white boy is doing is saying the quiet part out loud. So when you start talking about patriotism, you start talking about the American people. That's what white supremacists mean. Let me be very clear about this. This little nasty piece of work, and it's funny how they all look the same. John Curtis, who looks like a man who would, stumble into a truck stop at 2 o'clock in the morning for a bag of Funyuns and a warm soda, searching for his destiny and perhaps his desire in the middle of the night. They all look the same. John Curtis is a fellow of the Claremont Institution. Now, if y'all could look up the Claremont Institute, because at least 70 participants in the Claremont Institute's suite of fellowships are in the Trump administration. Here are some names of other Claremont fellows who are friends of this piece of work. Perhaps you've heard of Russell Vogt, even as we sit today and look at the evisceration of the Environmental Protection Agency, as you noted. James Braid, who is the White House legislative director, all this white nationalist stuff they're pushing through the legislature. Marco Rubio's advisor, Michael Needham, the deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency, they're all Claremont fellows. These are religious zealots. He wasn't struggling, Senator. And by the way, Jeremy Call is the guy's name. Jeremy Call is who we're watching, as you say. John Curtis is a Utah senator who has already said he's coming out against it. He's coming out against the nomination. And guess what he's basing his no vote on? This Republican senator. He's saying because the guy has anti-Israel views. That's probably what's going to stop Jeremy Call, because the same racists that consider black people mud people and N-words and all that, they consider those who are Jewish not to be human as well. And this is where the stumbling block comes in. See, in Jeremy Carl's world, and you saw him name check Jim Webb, former Senator and Secretary of the Navy Jim Webb out of Virginia, for a book he wrote on the Scotch-Irish and their fighting tradition. It's the same philosophy that you saw in, I don't know, let's think of something, Mel Gibson, that racist, his movie, The Patriot. Right? And then that's the one where Trump tried to give him his guns back. It's the same myth. The Irish, the Dutch, the Italians, the Germans, they all came together in a melting pot. And as Thurgood Marshall said, the Negro got through in that pot and not melted down. Why? Because they are white, because you are black. As James Baldwin said, their whiteness depends on the fact that they are not, thank heaven, you. That man's being honest, and I love him for it, because he gives you the litmus test. If you're with him, that means you're against us, and now we can fight. But all this pretense being dropped now, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Make a choice.
Well, what I find to be quite hilarious, Nola, is, oh yeah, I mean these are happening. You know, our white culture. I mean, there are the white churches. Their tone is different from the black churches. Then he brought up food. I'm like, boy, if you don't get your unseasoned chicken ass on.
Listen, I think Senator Murphy did a great job in breaking him down. Like, baby, what you talking about? What white food? You know, what white music are you talking about that black people came along and created? But, you know, I'm not going to get into that. My issue with all of this is, and, you know, I threaded on top of Senator Murphy's thread because I'm glad he called him a white nationalist, because that's absolutely what he is. And this administration is failing trying to market their white nationalism, right? So that's another part of it. And then I also think about, like, the Secretary of State, like Mark Rubio. What is going on? Like, the way you carry the water for white supremacy as the Secretary of State of the United States of America, that is so unbelievably sad. Because he had to okay this nomination. He had to okay for him to sit there and to even go through this process. So the fact that this brown man, who clearly hates everything about who he is and his heritage, is literally carrying the water for white supremacy and wanting to adopt it and put it into our foreign policy and go out into the rest of the world and sell it. It's not going to work. It's falling apart. And I am actually having a good time watching this particular product that they're trying to sell fall flat on its face. But seriously, Mark Rubio, I don't know what is going on with you, but someone who cares a great deal about Department of State and the work that comes out of Department of State, this ain't it. And whatever you need to do, whoever you need to pray to, whatever come to Jesus moment you need, whatever identity moment you need, I hope you have it, because this is sad and this is pathetic and this is going to be your legacy.
Well, and bottom line is this here, Rubio wants to run in 2028, Reese, and it's like, okay, we'll be happy to bring up the white nationalists, white supremacists who you allowed to work underneath you. And listen, what Donald Trump has done, to Greg's point, hey, they don't need sheets, they don't need hoods. They're like, no, we get to openly serve. He got people, Nazi-loving folk who are in the administration. So they got no problem embracing racists. But then it's like, but don't you dare call him a one. Well, he walked like one, talked like one. I think he is one.
Well, first of all, let me say, fuck Marco Rubio. You will never be president, bitch. That's number one. And then number two, your white culture is not getting erased. We're not fucking interested. That's what's happening. We're not interested. If we were interested, then that dingy, dirty, dusty, mangy-haired ass Kid Rock halftime show that was on YouTube barely would have got 130-something million views like Kid Rock got. It's enough for y'all if people was really interested to get run those numbers up. But we're not fucking interested. And we don't exalt you because ain't nobody coming to see you, Opie. Look at you. Ugh. Yuck. Yuck. More accurately, y'all just mad that we are not interested. And I actually very much celebrate y'all having y'all own shit because we don't need y'all fucking up the boots on the ground, the flex, and the Tamia line dance. I'm very, very, very much happy that we do have our own shit. That ain't the white shit. So if y'all white shit was more popping, then it will be something that everybody's interested. But in the meantime, in between time, we're gonna be over here minding our business, and you stay your motherfucking ass over there.
Well, you always know when it's interesting when you got the white bands, LSU and Georgia, trying to play neck during games. You got that, and this is also you look at this white racist here. And I wasn't gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna slide this in here. And y'all, I need y'all control. Can y'all please let me know if the Cancer Alley guest is audio has been fixed? I don't know if y'all saw this here, but that lame fool, Gene Simmons decided to weigh in. So he gave a podcast interview where he said that that hip hop stars quote doesn't speak his language. They should not be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He said the fact that, for instance, Iron Maiden is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they can sell out stadiums and Grandmaster Flash is. Ice Cube and I had a back and forth. He's a bright guy and I respect what he's done. It's not my music. I don't come from the ghetto. It doesn't speak my language. I say it in print many times. Hip hop does not belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, nor does opera, symphony, orchestras. It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He said, but I shot back and said, no, it's the spirit of rock and roll. Okay, fine. I just want you to know when Led Zeppelin is going to be in the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, music has labels because it describes an approach. See, and I'm going to go to you, Greg, first on this one. See, first of all, this is what I found to be very interesting. First, anybody who understands music knows that music genres are a result of Jim Crow. Music genres were put in to distinguish music. So therefore, what do they call pop compared to what do they call urban? It used to be called, they classified black artists as race music. So you have that. Second of all, you ain't got country music without black people. And now the white folks in country got so mad when Beyonce won the Grammy that they had, no, we're going to create a new category. It's going to be best traditional country and best, I don't know what the hell they call contemporary country. Because they like, no, we can't have this again. Now, I find this hilarious because Kiss literally stole its look from Patti LaBelle and her group, how they dressed. In fact, the guy working with Kiss went and got their clothes designer of Patti LaBelle's group in order to create the costumes of Kiss. Then Gene Simmons shows his ignorance and his bigotry by saying, well, I don't come from the ghetto. Well, I don't know that many folk who, even in white suburbia, are locked in closets, dressing with full makeup on, wearing outlandish suits, listening to rock. So yeah, that doesn't speak my language, but I can still say what belongs in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The reality is, what they don't like is they still abide by the notion that Elvis is the king of rock and roll, knowing full well it's Chuck Berry and Little Richard. So really, Gene Simmons, you can sit your little made up ass down because let's just be real clear. You Jewish. It's a whole bunch of white folks who wouldn't want your ass in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, he's a white nationalist, just like Marco Rubio is a white Latino. So their identity is in their whiteness, just like Stephen Miller, who also is technically Jewish, is a white nationalist. So they cling to their whiteness, and I encourage them to. And I'm glad that you connected and lashed he and the rest of his bandmates to LaBelle. And for the young people, just look up Labelle. And when you see Nona Hendrix and when you see Patti LaBelle and the rest of them, you will. And then just pull up KISS and you'll see Gene Simmons with his rip-off ass, exactly what you said. You know, I would encourage Gene Simmons, if he can indeed read the English language, to pick up Craig Nciardi's history of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Nciardi is the founding curator of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And before he got involved with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was basically an idea, he was the first curator. He was working at Sotheby's. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is about money. It's about artifacts. It's about big acts. It's about attracting eyeballs. And as you said so brilliantly there, Roland, the label rock and roll does not describe an approach to music, Mr. Simmons. If it did, as you say, Chuck Berry and Howling Wolf and Muddy Waters and Little Walter and all of those folks would rip that electric guitar out of your hand, and as they slapped you with it, take you all the way back to the West African shores and to Mali, where you could see that guitar's parent. My little friend, go to the 16-string Cora if you want to see the parent, because you, my friend, were crawling around in the caves and hills of Europe trying to figure out where you would eat your dinner and perhaps if you could cook it with a little bit of fire, while the Africans were perfecting the musical instruments, the very ones that made you famous. So, but if you read that book, what you'll see is Nciardi and them, these guys are marketing. And it's what you said, Roland. When, you know, what's the sister out of Columbus, Georgia, Ma Rainey and all the rest of them, they call all of it race records. And then they had the big band era, and they made Paul Whiteman the king of swing and Benny Goodman the king of swing, while Chick Webb and them were murdering them at the Savoy Ballroom. And then the war came, and you had to shrink those big bands down. Ellington kept his band on the road, but damn near everybody else had to fold up. And after the war, you couldn't pay all those musicians, but you do need a bass, you need a piano, and maybe a saxophone. And they labeled it rhythm, because they had a rhythm section, and blues, because the rhythm continued. But guess what? Now you still need white kings. So now you get Bill Haley in the comics, gonna rock around the clock. Elvis ripping off Big Mama Thornton and them. And to his defense, Elvis would say, I learned it from the black people, but the white people would say, I don't care where you learned it from, we're gonna make you the king. The Eminem of the era, if you will. And then as it comes forward, all these labels are just ways to make money. You had people who busted through those genres, like Ray Charles, who said, damn that, I grew up listening to country music, so I'm gonna drag it back. Or the man DeFord Bailey, the African who led the Grand Ole Opry, whose harmonica is the first thing you hear in the initial broadcast of the Grand Ole Opry. It has always been black foundation for white music. Gene, sing it, baby. But guess what? The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame makes too much money to care about what you think. So go on and let Iron Maiden and everybody else come on in. I enjoy it. And when them rappers show up on the stage, pissing you off, why don't you challenge one of them to a fight? And maybe we'll have some more spectacle for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as you get your ass whipped in front of the world.
I love it how they just want to run from blackness as much as they can, Nola.
You know, the first thing that I thought about was, and actually got nauseous from, is back to the Tybo days in Sherman Oaks. Because he used to always stand in the back with Magic Johnson, and he would always stick that nasty, disgusting tongue out. It was so gross. Like, I will never forget it. Like, as long as I live, like, I have chills thinking about it. And, you know, this is a very interesting conversation, but I think it's been long overdue for the name to be changed to the Music Hall of Fame anyway. No one listens to rock and roll. I mean, it has its place in music history, sure, fine. But the music that has defined the American sound for the last 50 years, it has not been rock and roll. And so I actually think it's time to change it to something that actually speaks to American music and all of that diversity, or just actually, we have our own things, we have our own awards. And I know that it's a really big deal to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the same way that we are thinking about how do we build our own infrastructure, how do we do the things that we need to get done for us, I'm actually tired of this debate, because every single time when it comes to putting, hip hop artists, basically anybody Black, this kind of comes up, and the way that he's framing his argument is around what's technically rock and roll and what technically isn't rock and roll. When is the last time a rock and roll artist had a hit, a number one, anything? Like, we are talking about a genre of music that doesn't even really exist. So this is kind of a moot conversation. It's really time to move on. And I really hope whatever that nasty plaque buildup on his tongue that used to be there, he got that taken care of.
Reese, my position is real simple. For the Gene Simmons of the world, others, kiss my ass.
Period. Actually, if it being called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame pisses off motherfuckers like Gene Simmons, I'm all here for it. I love when people reveal how much Black excellence triggers them. And no, bitch, you will not. Led Zeppelin, Metallica, none of the motherfuckers will ever get a BET Hip Hop Award or none of that stuff. So cry more.
And it's as simple as that. All right, looks like we have fixed the audio issues of our guests. We were talking about Louisiana's Cancer Alley and how they can move forward with their lawsuit. Sharon Levine, Sharon, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Can you
glad
hear me?
to have you here. Yes, I can hear you. First and foremost, one of the first things that Donald Trump did when they came in, they removed the federal government from that lawsuit. But clearly, that has not stopped y'all from seeking justice.
No, it haven't. It haven't stopped us, and we won our case, and we can move forward to discovery. And we're going forward with our lawsuit.
And how many folks now are part of this lawsuit?
We have Inclusive Louisiana, Mount Triumph Baptist Church, and Rise St. James. 3 organizations. Well, 1 church and 2 organizations in St. James Parish.
Mm-hmm. The thing here for me is, again, this is impacting Black lives. And you've got a Republican governor and Republicans in the state who don't give a damn. And they always talk about they're pro-life, but clearly they don't care about the lives of Black folks in Cancer Alley.
They don't. And they want to build more industries in my community. And it's because of us that they were not successful in building a plant called South Louisiana Methanol. They weren't successful in building Wan. They weren't successful in building syngas. We started this organization in 2018. Coke Methanol came in, but we didn't have this organization back at that time. But after we formed Rise St. James, we haven't had any more to come in. We have been blocking them. My parish councilman, A.J. Jasmine, the one that we elected after we got rid of the other parish council person, he came in and he reaffirmed Formosa Plastics. I did a recall on him, and I tried to get him out of office, put it that simple. But I didn't have enough signatures, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going because he betrayed us. And so he can't be our councilman.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, people power, and making it perfectly clear that if you are not representing the interests of the people, then we gonna take you out. And I'm just sick of folk who are unwilling to stand up and fight. And listen, We know there ain't no way on God's green earth that that if white folk were being impacted by petrochemical companies like this here, that folk would be silent and let them die of all these different diseases and then say, shut up, just take it.
I know. Back in 2014, I was teaching school. I didn't know that our parish rezoned this area as industrial. I didn't know that. So back in 2016, they told us that we had to leave out of our school. They built another school for us in another district. So we had to drive further to work, and the students had to drive further to school. And we were so hurt because of what they did to us. I don't know why our leaders didn't come to us and tell us. We voted them in office. We thought that they were protecting us and thinking about our best interests, but they weren't. They were selling us down the road. Our parish council did that, and our school board members did that. And when we found out about our school being sold, it was 2016 that we found out that our school was being sold. And it hurted us so bad. And now we have to suffer because coke methanol is polluting our air, and people in that area are dying. We had 3 people to die that's not far from coke methanol. 2 ladies died down the street, and 1 lady died right next to the facility. And I said, no, we are dying. St. James Parish is dying. I don't know how did it happen that all of these industries came in all of these years, and no one said anything. No one did anything until they announced Formosa Plastic would be coming in 2018. Our governor, John Bell Edward, announced that in April of 2018. And I asked the organization that I was a member of. It was called HELP, Humanitarian Enterprise of Loving People. I asked them, and some other ladies asked them, let's stop Formosa Plastics. And they said, oh, the governor approved it. It's a done deal. It's nothing you can do about it. So October of 2018, we started Rise St. James. We've been doing something every time something try to come in, we try to fight it. So far, we have been successful. And I know that we're going to win this fight also. When we went to court that day, God spoke to me and told me that we will be victorious. And look what happened. You can't tell me what God can't do. Oh, yes, I feel it right now. We're going to win this, Roland. You're going to call me back.
Well, I want to remind everybody who's watching and listening who doesn't know this. Greg, I'll let you explain this to the folks, but the phrase environmental racism, that came from Black people in North Carolina. Environmental, the environmental justice movement, that was Black people. So what y'all are doing in Louisiana Cancer Alley is exactly what those Black folks in North Carolina did in the 70s, how they shut those folks out, because what has happened in this country, and we're seeing this right now with all of these data centers. We see it in South Carolina. The white folks voted that they could not build a data center in their community. And that company went right over and said they targeting a Black community. And see what's happening, what you just described is what's happening in other places. A lot of these city councils, the city council and school boards, they're looking at, oh, this is going to bring jobs, it's going to bring revenue. And I'm like, everything about so-called economic development, it just should not happen at the expense of the health and the lives of the very people. Because you ain't got no people well enough to work, then it don't even matter. But what y'all are doing is exactly what Black people have always done, and that is fight for environmental justice.
Yes, it's a fight for our life because we had so many people dying, and I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I am glad to see that the judge agree with y'all, move forward. Hey, Say it again, guys. All right. Her signal frozen. Well, Sharon, listen, y'all keep putting that work in. Keep us abreast. We're going to keep covering this story. And congratulations. And I hope y'all are successful in what y'all are doing. Let me thank her as well. We'll quickly go to Pam before I go to the break. I mean, listen, Reese is point blank. When we talk about, we started the show off this way. Ain't nobody gonna care more than the folk who live there. And these folks, they don't have a lot of money. These folks they ain't got PhDs and masters and all that sort of stuff. But what they're saying is, if you gonna sit here and do this, we gonna take you out, we gonna target you, and we're going to put that pressure on you to do what's right when it comes to our community. And I think that is just so important.
Absolutely, it's important. I mean, the cavalry is not coming to save us, and power concedes nothing without a demand. And so people have to exercise their power, they have to exercise their capacity, and you have to start at the local level and make sure that you're leaving no stone unturned in terms of who gets elected. And in Louisiana, it's parishes, towns, counties, whatever the situation may be. It's very important. But you know what I really appreciate about them fighting back, and this has been a years long fight, is that it just does recognize that people are going to have to be accountable, and they're not just going to roll over and, you know, as they did with the cigarettes and stuff. Okay, we're going to put a little Newport festival or whatever situation may be, and we're going to distract y'all with this shiny object over here, bro. We're poisoning and killing y'all over here. So I appreciate that this case is going forward. I appreciate that it's related to slavery and the 13th and 14th Amendments. But I think what's also very important is for us to recognize that the data shows that this is a targeting of our communities. It's not that we have poor health outcomes because there's something innately inferior about us. It's not through our personal habits. It's because of environmental racism. And that is only going to explode even more with what this administration is trying to do with data centers, targeting Black areas, what they're trying to do with infrastructure, what they're trying to do with rolling back the EPA's role in stopping climate change. It's going to get worse unless we have more people like the people of this parish who are fighting back.
And the thing here, Noah, that I keep saying to people, you heard that sister say, you know, I found out later this is going on. This is why I tell people, when the election is over, there's the end of one process and the beginning of another. We gotta have people going to city council meetings to know what's on the agenda, to know what's being approved, to go to those committee meetings. This is why when I talked about how we had, you know, in the 70s and 80s, you had this Black infrastructure where you had Black people in many of these cities and towns, and they were the folk who kept us apprised of what's going on, and something went down, and they sent the clarion call. And to the people out there, understand, you can't do this just sitting at home tweeting or posting on TikTok and Instagram. No, you got to be in the room. You got to be looking up an agenda, going, hold up, what's this project here? Because too often we are responding to something after it's already been voted on, after it's already been passed, and now we're trying to stop it, as opposed to stopping it on the front end.
Yeah, definitely. I hear what you're saying. And I think there needs to be a complete shift in thinking, because growing up in New Orleans in the 80s, I mean, to this day, when I smell chemicals, I mean, it reminds me of my childhood. You know, it's a reason why I have asthma. But growing up in the 80s, you know, and my parents coming out of, my dad was a big SNCC guy. Oh my God. Like when Rap Brown recently died, you know, like my dad's a big SNCC person. And there really was these conversations around not only how to protect, you know, your Black child, but this idea of wanting to move towards something else because of the Black leaders that died. And when I think about the 80s being all about, you know, kind of yuppieism, and when I think about my environment, you know, when you have the Black parents who have the minivans and that the kids are in private school, and there really is this kind of idea of wanting to kind of leave those bad things behind and we want to move forward to something else. And it's in that something else and wanting to move away from it where we lost a lot of what you're talking about, Roland. A lot of the things that Greg is talking about. A lot of the kids that come from, you know, the 70s, the 60s, 70s parents, we are in this kind of weird space of wanting the capitalistic, materialistic dreams. And a lot of that is staying focused and not wanting to have to think about the bad things about politics and to get involved because we're supposed to be living in the American dream. Right. So I think that is very important to talk about and why it's so hard to get people to want to pay attention, to get people to want to be involved, because they simply just want to live their lives. They simply want the American dream. But what people need to understand is that that so-called American dream, first of all, it doesn't exist. But if you want it to exist, you got to fight for it. You got to fight for it. Nobody's going to hand it to you. And that's what they're doing in St. James Parish. And Louisiana has a long history, you know, of this in activism, Plessy, you know, that's just one example. But I genuinely think we need to really have dialogues about this moment that we're in. People who don't want to be in this moment, but we have no choice because this moment is here. It's upon us. Right. But there's a lot of folks that I have conversations with. They're like, I can't pay attention to all of that. It's too much. It's too much going on. I need to focus on my life. And it is those folks that we need to reach, that we need to talk to, that probably aren't watching this show tonight. Because the people that are watching this show tonight, they're the ones we don't need to be worried about. It's the people that are apathetic and at home because they want that American dream that somebody told them about.
No, I disagree with that. Because I'm going to tell you right now, not everybody who's watching this show is locked in and community driven. I can tell you personally, I've heard from a lot of people who said, man, somebody forwarded me the clip, or I saw this and I saw that and I didn't know, and it got me involved. And the reason, and that's why we have to keep repeating that and stating that and not assume that people are highly engaged. One of the reasons why I like to just be very methodical with this micro approach, Greg, is because all I hear from people, and I hear this everywhere, and I know you do as well, and Reese doesn't know that, if people want to do something, but most people believe that they don't have power. Most people say, oh, man, I don't have money. I'm not educated. I'm not one of the big people, so therefore I can't impact this. And what Sharon just showed us is what happens when you have a stake. You have a stake in your community. She is trying to save Black lives. She's trying to save the lives of poor white folks who live there as well. And what these people are saying is, we live here. It doesn't matter about our education. It doesn't matter about our income. These plants are killing us, and we're going to do all we can to shut these places down. And that's what I want people watching or listening to this show, and they come across it, to understand you can absolutely be a difference maker, but you can't do it if you don't engage, if you don't engage yourself in the political process, if you're not going down to City Hall and making demands of government.
That's right. It's the only thing that has ever worked. And I forget who that statement is attributed to. Say never think that a small, dedicated group of people can't change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that has ever worked to do that. And listening to Miss Cheryl Miss Sharon rather. Listening to Miss Sharon, that's exactly right, Roland. It looks micro until it becomes macro. She absolutely has the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer or Ella Jo Baker, particularly Miss Hamer, because she is convicted spiritually. And I watched you as she was saying, you know, I was going up the steps of the courthouse. God told me we were going to win, and you just kind of nodded. That's what victory looks like. It wasn't defeatist. There was a spirit about her, the way she was looking, and you just feel not just that confidence, but that serenity, because our cause is just. And, it's interesting. A couple of things. I am very much encouraged, even as we know that the judge in this case, a Clinton appointee at the district court level, I think is probably more open to that. And we know that, of course, that nasty ass Fifth Circuit sits there waiting for the appeal. Yeah, I was very much encouraged by them pursuing not only a 14th Amendment argument, as Reese said, but as you also said, Reese, a 13th Amendment argument. because it is indeed a badge and incidence of slavery. I think the 13th Amendment has been unnecessarily narrowed over the arc of the last 150 years. It should be revived as a tool in the ongoing intellectual war in the courts. Because what is the definition of a badge of servitude, if not the fact that out of 32 area plants built in that region, 28 of them have been in Black districts? What is a badge of servitude, if not the fact that the places they put these plants literally mirror the footprint of the plantations? It's the same thing that Ketanji Onyeka Brown Jackson was arguing in the voting rights case in Louisiana when she said, when you overlay the maps on where the Black people are, they are literally on the grounds where the plantations were. Those Black people have not moved. I think it is a compelling argument. I think the news, as you reported earlier in the show about the Environmental Protection Agency and the rollback of the 2009 finding about greenhouse gases, which, by the way, does not overturn the 1970 Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Air Act, rather, which didn't name greenhouse gases in the way that the 2009 finding did, but did leave room for the Supreme Court in a landmark case to say greenhouse gases should be included. This is why young people in particular, when you're in your law students, my law students, we were talking about this last night in another related area, in another area that was related to, environment. This is why you study, because now we have to take this intellectual warfare into the court. These little nasty ass pieces of work like Russell Vogt with the Claremont Institute, this clown you showed earlier. And by the way, J.D. Vance, very close to the Claremont Institute. Clarence Thomas, very close to the Claremont Institute. They're a small group of people. They're not the Heritage Foundation. About 150 of the 900 pages of the Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025, are devoted to destroying the environment because they want to give all of that to the oil and the gas boys. This is all about money.
Yeah.
I'll end with this. Your friend Robert Bullard, who was at Texas Southern, they named, of course, he's considered the father of environmental justice. And you mentioned what happened in North Carolina with the emissions and all the hog farms and all that in the 80s. This comes down to us knowing. What you showed us today is not only information, it's the spirit of resistance and the spirit of victory. That is a very valuable interview you conducted tonight with Sister Sharon, Brother Roland.
We talk about spirit of resistance. That needs to happen in sports. All too often, though, when we talk about from the era of sports, we're talking about from the player standpoint. I'm here in Los Angeles for the NBA All-Star Weekend, and we think about Oscar Robertson. We think about Bill Russell. We think about Spencer Haywood, the role that those athletes play in getting free agency for players. But then you begin to ask, well, what about coaches? Bill Russell, first African-American coach of the NBA, player coach as well. Look at the NFL. Just had the Super Bowl that just took place, and you saw that the play caller for the Seattle Seahawks is the Clint Kubiak, the son of former Houston Texans head coach Gary Kubiak, is now the head coach at the Seattle Seahawks. You look at the massive nepotism in the NFL. There were the sons and the grandsons and the cousins and the nephews, how they all get all of these jobs. 10 openings in the NFL, not one Black head coach. But part of that is also because the coaches don't have a union. They don't. DeMaurice Smith is the former executive director of the NFL Players Association, has a fascinating book called Turf Wars. You want to check that book out. Go look at the interview that I did with DeMaurice, who was on the show. And DeMaurice, Brian Flores sued the NFL. His lawsuit is still ongoing.
Yep.
He's now the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league at $6 million with the Vikings. If Brian Flores was white, oh my God, every single one of these owners, this man has his defense for the Minnesota Vikings is scary good. Not as good on Houston Texans, but damn close.
Right.
But if that was a white man, please, they would be saying, what can we give you to become our head coach?
Well, first of all, if he was white, nobody would even know the name Brian Flores, right? He would be the successful coach of an NFL team that over a period of years has done nothing but excel, right? He would be among just about everybody else. We know who Brian Flores is because he's one of the few brave people that decided to take on the National Football League.
And so here we are, and you, of course, seen it from the player standpoint, but you also see it from the coaches.
Yep.
I love how the goalposts get moved. I love how, oh, no. In order to become a head coach, you need to be a coordinator. All of a sudden, all right, okay. The brother, because see, the black coaches used to be the wide receivers coach, the running backs coach. Right. That was the only two jobs. Then now all of a sudden, then you begin to see, then there was a period where like, offensive, I think about Mike Tice and other offense, like, hold up. How you go from offensive line coach to head coach? And then it was like, oh, no, but you had a coordinator. Well, John Harbaugh was a special teams coach, became head coach. Dan Campbell was tight end coach, became the head football coach at Detroit Lions. So then the black coaches like, okay, put their head down, and they start becoming defensive coordinators left and right. Then Byron Leftwich becomes an offensive coordinator, wins the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right. Ain't been hired since. Right. So it's amazing how, and then now, what, the Rams had a guy who was the assistant wide receivers coach, who's now a head coach.
Yeah. Look, can I give you a couple of stats? I mean, I wrote an article for the Yale Law Journal in 2023 called The Rooney Suggestion. And I called it the Rooney Suggestion because the Rooney Rule is literally the only rule in the history of the National Football League that the league doesn't enforce and has never worked. So it's just a suggestion. So in connection with that article, I polled and did a confidential survey of 65 black coaches. And this is what came out of that survey. 90% of the black coaches reported that they believe the NFL and its owners do not adhere to federal statutes about fair hiring. 70% reported that the NFL league office is not responsive to equity discrimination. 80% reported that they were never briefed on EEOC laws or fair hiring laws, and 90% believe that race plays a role in the owner's decision to hire head coaches. That was an article I wrote in 2023. So when we go 0 for 10 in minority hiring in 2026, the one person who's not surprised is me. It is a closed system where the owners simply want to be able to do whatever they want to do about whatever they want to do to whoever they want to do it to. And because it is a closed system, there is no accountability structure. It is a closed system that is going to do $25 billion in revenue this year, so there are no economic consequences for their bad behavior. But here's, and this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, but here's the other problem. Every city in which there is an NFL team, every state in which there is an NFL team, has comparable state laws that require fair hiring standards. And not one state attorney general, not one, has ever taken the league to task to enforce the state law for fair hiring. And that's a failure. That is just simply a failure on a closed system. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But at the end of the day, you're talking about a mentality of a system that we know has a plantation mentality, that we know. But this is a system that has proven track record of not abiding by the law, and not one person has stood up from the government to fight them. Instead, what they have done is they have left it up to an individual coach like Brian Flores to risk his career to try to do things that state and local government should be doing. Hot take?
Go ahead.
Hot take? I mean, I'm not going to make a lot of friends with the state attorney generals, but it's true.
And let's be real. And part of that is because politicians love to hang out with the teams.
100%.
They love to be around, whether it's the NBA, the baseball, or football. They love to be around, and the owners, they court them. We know who sits in the suites.
100%.
And the problem is the way fans operate. Fans act like they're the owners. How dare you call out my team? How dare you question my team?
100%.
And so those people are also voters.
Right. No, and that is the system. It is Look, I ran the NFL Players Association for 15 years. My job was to try to make it better for the players, you know, the next day than the day before. But look, I tried to unionize assistant coaches in my predecessor, Gene Upshaw, tried to unionize coaches for almost 2 decades. But it was also a group that's unionized. So, you know, we find ourselves now in an untenable system where there is no outside pressure for compliance to the law. There's no inside pressure from a group of people who want to unionize. And the only enforcement mechanism that is available for correction is whether some brave person is going to stand up and risk their career. That is a system that will perpetuate unfairness.
So in many ways, these coaches, they're all alone. They're just out there just winging it. And then from a assistant standpoint, you are completely at the mercy of the team or whoever the head coach is. So the head coach gets fired, you're screwed. You have you've got nothing. And this thing goes on. And let's be real clear. In the NFL, hey, these white guys dominated, and it's so much nepotism that coaching in the NFL is like a family heirloom.
You have a faster track to being a head coach based on your last name than any success that you might have as a D coordinator and an O coordinator. And that is just statistically true. Statistically true. Now, there are some groups out there, Mike Loxley's group, the National Minority Coaches Association, is working to try to change. But I have been inside this closed system for 15 years as the only other group of people who are unionized in the NFL system, other than referees. What did, you opened up talking about Oscar Robertson. We had our John Mackey. We had our Reggie White. We had our Freeman McNeil. Those were the 3 people that put their careers on the line to get free agency. There is a through line. There's a through line between the civil rights movement, the gender rights movement, the minority farm workers movement. That through line is whether there will be a group of people who can rise up and cause enough of an agitation and then engage in the systemic process of having the law applied fairly. And until that happens in the National Football League, until, as you've pointed out, we get a few more politicians who care more about enforcing the law than spending some time in the Sky Suite, this is always going to be a system that is going to thumb its nose about the laws of the United States and more importantly, the Constitution of this United States.
Questions for my panel. Reese, you first.
Yes, I'm curious about, are you seeing an anti-DEI backlash in the NFL, and is that providing cover for the lack of representation and advancement in the coaches?
Yeah, look, there clearly is an anti-DEI backlash, but, I'm talking about something, the Yale article wasn't about DEI. The Yale article was about whether you're enforcing the existing laws of the United States. I mean, let's just break this down into a very easy frame. No jobs get posted in the National Football League. There's no system by which, if you're an offensive coordinator on one team, you know what the salary is for the offensive coordinator on another team. There's no standard way by which coaches are screened and interviewed. You have no idea what are the standards by which you're going to be measured in order to get the job. Those are not DEI things. Those are the law. That's the way the law exists today, that every person who applies for a job should have a reasonable expectation of what the process is going to be and what standard I'm going to be held against in order to get the job. So yes, there is a stark DEI backlash. I think the problem is more insidious. The Rooney Rule was a sham when it started. It was a sham. The people who came up with it might have come up with it with a very good idea, but they insisted on creating a rule that has no mechanism for enforcement, no consequences when it is not enforced. And once again, I can't point to another rule in the National Football League that has never been followed. So, yes, there is a pushback, that is interestingly, synonymous with the change of the administration. But the league hasn't followed the statutes of the United States or the statutes of many of our states for decades.
Nola?
Thank you so much for doing this work and approaching it through, through survey data and things like that. But what you're describing seems to be something that is corrupt. We're talking about illegality. And as someone who, kind of stepped away from football, I used to love football. I'm from New Orleans. Of course, I love the Saints after Kaepernick, because that was a really big moment. But my question is, what you're describing is very disturbing. I remember Bruin saying that, let me go back to the plantation. Let me go back to the projects where we live and, in our dorms. I remember all that. What is the counter? What can happen? Because you're saying that the system is closed.
Right.
You're definitely describing corruption and illegality.
Yep.
So what's the alternative? Because people are not going to stop watching football.
Enforcement. I mean, I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years here in the District of Columbia. I know what it's like to come across a set of facts that violate federal law, and then you step into a courtroom and you hold someone accountable for the violation of federal and state law. That is the answer in this closed system. I can make an even better case. Not only are they blatantly violating federal law and state law when it comes to unfair hiring, these are also groups of people who are getting enormous tax breaks. These are people who are benefiting off the backs of taxpayers. These are the folks who, like, you take the Buffalo Stadium, at the end of the day, that is going to cost taxpayers in that jurisdiction in excess of $1.4 billion, while Terry Pagula parks his $100 million yacht in the bay so he can watch his daughter play in the tennis tournament. So not only do you have a group of people who are blatantly violating the law goes further in these jurisdictions to give them things like antitrust exemptions, tax exemptions. When you show up at the stadium, what do you see? It is surrounded by first responders who are all being paid overtime. The taxpayers are paying those things. So not only do you have an unfair system that violates the law, once you add the fact that these 31 billionaires, and it is the largest concentration of billionaires in America. I talk about it in my book, Turf Wars. These are people who are actually benefiting from a system that is costing taxpayers money. So it's a twofer. You have a group of state and local folks who are not only turning a blind eye to their violation of state law, but at the same time, they are shoveling buckets of taxpayer money into the pockets of the billionaire class.
Dr. Greg Carr.
Well, as you can see, I'm not going
Roland.
to, I don't get any holiday gifts from the owners, obviously.
Indeed. Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Brother Smith, for this thoughtful exercise and spending this time with us today. To echo what Nola said, I haven't watched a down of football since Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Because if they could put down a slave rebellion, for me, it's a matter of self-respect. It's really a matter of self-respect.
Yeah.
I haven't watched professional football. I'm still HBCU fan. And I guess this is where my question goes. When you talk about Bill Russell, and we think about, of course, the great Kurt Flood and what happened to him, sacrificing his whole career.
Yeah.
How, in your mind, particularly given your, not only extensive work, but your deep engagement with the intellectual warfare that's taking place in the courts, and realizing that, as Malcolm X would say, there's no new law. This is all about statutory interpretation,
100%.
judge-made law. These
Right.
things could be easily be reversed.
Right.
In your mind, thinking expansively, and I think you are the perfect person, maybe the only person who sits at the nexus could even theorize on this. What role does the social environment, what role does the larger societal shifts play in this? And can you imagine a tipping point, because we're really talking about empire. These billionaires, this is their plaything. It's the same guys that are robbing us blind in every other kind of way. Is it in your mind possible that a sea change in attitudes could trigger an enforcement mechanism if they get nervous that people are either going to stop watching football or, you know, are going to turn against this fascist movement in this country? Put this in the context of the environment. And Russell and Flood are able to do what they did with Ali and others, and then Reggie White, because there are social movements around them that make these people nervous. Could you talk a little bit about just kind of thinking about that in context?
Yeah, sure, and that's a fantastic question. I mean, look, I've studied more of the history of that movement. You know, whether it was Kurt Flood, you know, John Mackey on our side of the table, Reggie White on our side of the table, Oscar Robinson on that side of the table. You know, look, those, it is very interesting that when you look at all of those moments, Kurt Flood, Oscar Robinson, John Mackey, all of those were late 60s, early 70s.
Yes.
And
yes.
their idea of coming forward and challenging their respective leagues, I mean, I hope, I will post it later on tonight, but everyone should read Kurt Flood's letter to Bowie Kuhn in 1969, because his letter starts off by saying the common words of I expect to be treated more than a piece of property. And I think that it was also not only a moment of incredible personal bravery, but it was also synonymous with a movement that was going on in the country at exactly the same time. So to answer the question, I think that my only hope is that we can once more have the movement of personal courage that is also matched with a movement of social responsibility. And then what happens? The courts and the legislature step up. Because remember, Kurt Flood lost.
That's right.
Yep.
Kurt Flood lost.
Right.
And Kurt Flood lost because there was an antiquated, absolutely ridiculous Supreme Court opinion by Oliver Wendell Holmes that frankly made no sense. It was later modified when Bill Clinton became president. But you know, John Mackey and Reggie White won because the law had changed. So my only hope is that at some point we will once again reach a moment in our country where we have the necessary level of personal courage matched by the level of social responsibility so that something like that can happen.
And I just want to piggyback on what Greg said there. I also think what has to happen is, and this is really, I think this is the difference between Brian Flores and Colin Kaepernick. You talk about it in your book, Turf Wars.
Yeah.
That Kaepernick, he never returned the calls of the players' union. When he got the tryout, his own attorney said that was really a PR thing. What Flores is doing, and Kaepernick also settled his lawsuit.
Right.
What Flores is doing, Flores ain't settling.
Right.
Flores is Flores could have settled, and this is where Mike Tomlin hired, after Flores gets fired from the Miami Dolphins, Tomlin hires him on his staff.
Mm-hmm.
Flores then gets hired as the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. As I said, you know, he's now, because their defense has been damn good, he's now the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league at $6 million a year. He's not backing down.
No.
So Brian Flores is a threat to the NFL system, because in this case, you have a plaintiff that is saying, I'm going to go for it. I just got to be honest. I think what happened with Kaepernick made a decision. He sort of disappeared in the protest. It happened, but it was not really organized. It really wasn't anything around it, and people just sort of did it. But you had, in essence, a reluctant plaintiff, for lack of a better phrase. In this case, here's a guy who's saying, I am not settling with you. I want to go to trial.
Yep.
I want this to be public.
Yep.
And the NFL, they've been losing at every turn trying to throw his lawsuit out.
Yes, because the league succeeds in the shadows. And you bring out a great point. I mean, to me, my hero, for the 15 years I led the players, my hero was John Mackey. He's the first person that sues the National Football League for free agency in 1971. He's playing for a quarterback named Johnny Unitas. Nobody else from that team joins John Mackey. There's plenty of stars on that team. But to your point, John Mackey fights that case to the death. He loses his job and he's traded. It takes 20 years. John Mackey files his lawsuit in 1971. The NFL did not get free agency until 1993. Hundreds of players fighting a lawsuit to the death. That's how free agency was achieved in the National Football League. And there's a lot of things that I obviously can't say about the Kaepernick case because I was wrapped up in it as a lawyer. But to your point, what the league fears is a person motivated by pure personal courage who is willing to fight to the death. And oddly enough, that is exactly the same mentality that has led us through the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, and everything else. Everything else.
I'll make this last point because I think you just said it. You said there were other stars on that team. Curt Flood was a star, but he wasn't a superstar.
100%.
And because of the fear, what happened? You had Henry Aaron and Willie Mays. They did not stand with Curt Flood.
Right.
It could privately was one thing, but I'm talking about a public stance. And so when you talk about Bob Mackey, Curt Flood, these were cats who were truly alone.
Truly alone. Let me read the first line from Curt Flood's letter. After 12 years in the major leagues, I do not feel that I am a piece of property to be bought and sold irrespective of my wishes. A man who was willing to fight to the death.
There's a good documentary about it.
Oh, the guy, soldier.
Well,
soldier. Soldier.
And that's also why if there were a lot of baseball players who didn't go to the funeral of Curt Flood. But I dare say when we talk about heroes, Bob Mackey, Curt Flood, Spencer Haywood, you're talking about individuals. And right now, again, I'm here in LA, the NBA All-Star game. Every single NBA player, especially if they were a one and done or came out of high school, should be walking up to Spencer Haywood and saying, "Brother, thank you."
On bended knee.
And his of course, Spencer will tell you, every time I see him, his greatest mistake, he said, "I was a dummy. Didn't listen to Thurgood Marshall." Thurgood Marshall said, "Put my name on the case so it could be whoever was versus Spencer Haywood." He said, "You will go down in history." He said, "Being a dummy, I didn't listen to Thurgood Marshall." But again, highly successful with that. So DeMaurice, I really final comment. I really do hope. And again, listen. Thank God that Flores got a shot. He can still coach and he's still getting paid.
Yep.
But I really hope this thing goes all the way, because what he's exposing is what you laid out, the sham interview process, how it goes down. And the NFL, the last thing they want is for their owners to be put under oath on a stand. The last thing here that also I need people who are watching to understand, there are people who I see y'all are commenting. Here's what y'all not getting. Head coaching money in the NFL is literally lineage changing money. We talk about, and that was I almost said it. There was an NFL player who was going to the Super Bowl, who was really, he was like, I don't understand all this stuff with the coaches. And I can't remember whether he tweeted something and I called him, or he called me. He said, hey man, I want to get an understanding. And indeed, when I walked him through the money and how much money the head coaches make, and I walked him through how when we get shut out from those jobs, or have one, the case of Stefanski goes to Cleveland, gets fired, now he gets a head coaching job elsewhere. That means that in a period of 8-10 years, Kevin Stefanski could make 60, 70, 80, $100 million. Well, and when I told his brother that, he was like, damn, man, I never thought about it. I was like, that's my point, brother. He didn't take one hit. He didn't get one concussion.
Well, and also think, though, of the ramifications. Kevin Stefanski's kids have an inside track now to become the O coordinators and to become the head coaches. So that simple change becomes a perpetual change in lineage.
There you go. There you go. DeMaurice Smith, folks, trust me, y'all get the audiobook on Audible, or you can actually get the book Turf Wars. It's a fascinating book. D, thanks for your insight on this topic. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
The Trump administration says it's ending its immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Border czar Tom Homan announced this administration is shutting down Operation Metro Surge, a federal immigration enforcement effort that brought nearly 3,000 immigration agents into the Minneapolis area. That's nearly 5 times the size of the city's police force. Homan said the operation is ending due to what he called successful enforcement efforts and coordination with local law enforcement. The announcement comes just weeks after federal authorities shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens during enforcement activity. The Department of Homeland Security says more than 4,000 undocumented immigrants have been apprehended since the operation began in November. Nebraska's Republican Secretary of State says he will submit sensitive information on every registered voter in the state to the U.S. Justice Department. The move comes after a state judge dismissed a lawsuit filed by the government watchdog group Common Cause, which had sought to block the release of voter data, including dates of birth, home addresses, even partial Social Security numbers. The legal battle in Nebraska comes amid growing federal pressure on states to turn over voter information, as President Donald Trump has publicly called for the federal government to take over elections in Democratic-run areas with the midterms approaching. The Justice Department began pushing states last year to release voter data and election records and has filed lawsuits against at least 23 states and the District of Columbia in an effort to obtain the voter rolls. The survivors and victims' families of a racist mass shooting will get $1.75 million from Mean Arms, a Georgia gun accessory maker. The shooting killed 10 Black people at the Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo, New York back in 2022. The settlement also includes a halt to sales of the device in New York. The lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James covers claims from various victims' families and survivors at the supermarket. They also reached agreements to resolve their own separate suits against the gunman, Peyton Grendon's family, and a Vintage Firearms LLC gun seller. The claims against Means Arms focused on an item that locks a magazine onto a rifle. The lock is supposed to keep people from swapping high-capacity magazines. Those are illegal in New York. A 75-year-old Black man from Alabama is facing execution despite the state admitting that he did not commit the murder for which he was convicted. Charles Sonny Burton has been on death row for more than 30 years for his role in a 1991 AutoZone robbery in Talladega, where customer Doug Battle was shot and killed. Prosecutors say Burton was outside the store when the shooting happened. The gunman, Derek DeBruce, later had his death sentence reduced to life in prison, but Burton remains on death row. Now, Alabama Supreme Court has cleared the way for Burton to be executed March 12th by nitrogen gas. Battle's daughter and several jurors are urging Governor Key Ivey to grant clemency, calling the case a major question of fairness and justice. If Burton's execution takes place, it will be the first one in 2026. The family of 41-year-old Jean Wilson Brutus says The healthy Haitian asylum seeker died after spending about 24 hours in custody at the Delaney Hall ICE Processing Center. That's in Newark, New Jersey. In a news release, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement described Brutus as a 41-year-old criminal illegal alien from Haiti. The agency says he passed away on December 12th from suspected natural causes. Brutus's family disputes that characterization, saying he was in good health before his detention. The detention facility where Brutus was held has faced criticism in the past over conditions for detainees. Senator Cory Booker publicly called out the center last year in a Facebook post over concerns about detainee treatment. A hidden safe house, once used by the Underground Railroad, has been discovered inside of one of New York City's most well-known historic museums, the Merchants House. The landmark was once a residential home, later preserved as a historic site in 1936, showcasing what life looked like for a wealthy family in the late 1800s. But beyond a row of bedrooms on the second floor, researchers uncovered a vertical passageway believed to have been used by freedom seekers traveling in secret during slavery. Historians say the discovery adds new evidence of how enslaved Africans escaped bondage, often with the help of both Black and white abolitionists. The Underground Railroad was a hidden network of safe houses and secret routes that helped guide people from slavery, legalized in the South, to freedom in northern states.
Well, folks, what began as an effort to boost their son's morale has now turned into a growing business. The founder of Affirmation Effect, Denise Hill, is here to share us, talk about their apparel, accessories, and candles. Denise, glad to have you here. So, okay, what happened here? How did this start in terms of looking to boost the confidence of your son?
Hi, Roland. Thank you for having me. So yeah, about 12 years ago, our youngest son came home from school and he said he didn't feel special. And my husband and myself, we didn't understand why, because he was popular among his peers. But in that moment, we realized that we needed to do something. So we started printing positive affirmations on our son's clothing. He plays basketball, so some of the shirts said future NBA player. I think the first one we made, it says, I can succeed. Our son is now a junior in college. He's a college athlete. So the affirmations work and he's thriving.
Wow. And so, okay, you were doing this, and then all of a sudden it was like, maybe there's some other people out there that need this. We can start a business.
So yeah, so it's funny. So the kids, because he was wearing the shirts to school, so the kids and the teachers all love the idea, and of course the teachers are like, where's our sizes? So we kind of made a transition and realized, like, if we start empowering the adults, we empower a whole household, because now we have these adults with these positive affirmations that are now sharing them with their children, who are the next generation.
And then when did you start saying, well, let's go beyond T-shirts and let's just do other products?
So we realized, like, the T-shirts were great, and the T-shirts were inspiring people by wearing them. They were inspiring others wearing them, out in the community. But we also wanted people to have something to inspire themselves at home. So in 2019, we introduced our luxury candle line that's made from coconut wax that also has the positive affirmations on the candles.
All right, questions from my panel. Let's see here. Reese, go. Okay, Reese, let's go to Nola.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yes.
So I love that this business was inspired by your son and affirmations. So is there other sort of accessories that's going to come with the candles, or are you leaning all the way into the candles? I guess this is really a question about scaling, or is it just about the candles?
So no, so we offer reed diffusers. We offer wax melts, wax warmers. So we have a full line of home scents for you to use.
Greg.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Sister Denise. And at my first blush, I wanted to ask you about your philanthropy work, particularly around empowering single mothers. But I must confess, I am fascinated by these wax melts and warmers. What is the concept behind that? And your prices are very affordable. But I did want to ask you about the philanthropy as well. But what is the concept of a wax melt? I don't know that I know about those kind of things.
So we live in Santa Monica, so we were very close to the fires that happened last year. So there's, in our community, a lot of people kind of shied away from burning candles. So the wax melts and the warmers, it allows you to have that candle scent without the fire. So it's just a safer way to get the fragrance.
Okay. And do you mind saying something about philanthropy? Because I think, clearly this isn't just about making money. Your price points are very affordable, as I said, but you're involved in uplifting and uplift work. Could you talk a little bit about the philanthropic initiatives y'all are involved in?
Yes, so my husband and I serve on the advisory board for Single Moms Planet, which is an organization here in Los Angeles that empowers single mothers and families. They also do financial literacy. So our sales also, a portion of our sales go back to that organization. And I was raised by a single mother, so that's why I attach myself to that organization, because I know how hard it can be. I saw my mother struggle with 3 girls. So donating to an organization that is helping single mothers get out of poverty, start their own businesses to improve their families was something I was happy to get behind.
Thank you.
All right, then, folks, if you want to get the products, simply go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. If you go to the website, you'll see them on there. In Affirmation Effect, you see all of their products. And again, when you support them, you support Shop Black Star Network. You're supporting this Black-owned business as well. So, Denise, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so very much. Let me thank Greg. Let me thank Nola and Reese for being on today's show. Folks, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Glad to see y'all and see you soon. Folks, this is day 2. Bishop William Barber, Repairs of the Breach, their March for Justice in Raleigh, North Carolina. We live stream today's activities. We're doing so tomorrow as well, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here's some of what we got today.
Wesley Lowry here with the Black Star Network, and I'm here with Reverend Petty on the second day of the This Is Our Selma March across North Carolina from Wilson to Raleigh, convened by Repairers of the Breach, Reverend William Barber. And Reverend Petty, can you talk to me a little bit about why you came out here today?
Yeah, I came out here because I care about North Carolinians. And it's time for us to really put love back into our politics, a moral compass back into our politics. Our legislature has really taken us backwards in terms of who we see ourselves being as a state, as North Carolinians, attacking our voting rights, our health care, all of the things that help us care for one another, particularly the vulnerable among us. And so we're here to say that we envision a North Carolina differently than what our legislatures are envisioning in North Carolina. We envision a North Carolina that loves, that welcomes the stranger, that cares for the poor and the marginalized. And so we're here to walk and to represent a moral center that says love is stronger than hate, love is stronger than division, and we will keep working in the state of North Carolina and in our nation for us to be a people who believe that we are better when we love and care for one another.
Now, what would you say to people who are discouraged in this moment? We have an unpopular administration. We've seen aggressive actions, whether it be by immigration enforcement, whether it be against black institutions, HBCUs, attacks on social services. A lot of people right now feel underrepresented by their government and feel attacked in many ways by their government. What would you say to those folks who say, I've marched, I've been out there, we did the resistance, and who just don't feel like they have it in the tank?
Yeah, I say you got to keep at it. It is discouraging. I will admit that. It's discouraging when we see ICE raids the way we have been seeing them, what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, what is happening to our brown and black neighbors. It is discouraging, but we can't let that despair. In the face of despair, you have to have defiance.
Well, you told me a story earlier that you think of from John Lewis. And so for people who are watching who might be in my home state of Ohio or in Texas, here in North Carolina, in states that have been targeted by gerrymandering and redistricting, who often sometimes people, especially black and brown folks, low-income folks, might feel not represented by the folks who they have either in their state houses or federally. Can you reshare that story with me one more time?
Sure. And so it was an interview that Krista Tippett on the podcast One Being was interviewing John Lewis about when he walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and was practically almost beaten to death. And she said, and you know, he talked about how he loved the people, all the people. And she said, how could you love the people that almost beat you to death? And he said, you've got to understand, love is already present, and all we have to do is join it. And that's what we're doing today, and what we did yesterday and what we'll do tomorrow and days to come is those of us who carry a faith, particularly, but non-faith people as well, we have to recognize that love is present. And when we join love, things change. And so I get, wanting to give up, wanting to be in despair, but I think we have to think about our ancestors, our elders, our spiritual leaders like John Lewis, who could have given up way long before that moment, but he didn't. And even after that, he didn't give up. He kept loving. And that's how powerful love is. And it's what King taught us, that love is stronger than hate. Hate doesn't change anything. And so while you might, say, I'm tired of marching, I'm tired of, going to rallies, you can still love where you are. But the witness is important. To be out here today, tomorrow, and the days to come is really important. Everybody has a voice, and we need to sound our voices for love.
Reverend Petty, thank you so much for being here with me. One of the hundreds of people who have been marching, starting in Wilson, making their way to rally. Started yesterday on Wednesday, now it's Thursday. We'll be out here again Friday, and then on Saturday is going to be a big rally in front of the State House. Again, here in North Carolina, where one of the states where there has been redistricting in the off year, where there have been aggressive attempts at both the state level and a federal level, and where leaders like Reverend Petty, like Reverend Barber and others, have been attempting to mobilize a movement of people in response. All right, we're about halfway through the Wilson to Raleigh. This is our Selma March, hosted by Reverend Dr. William Barber. And as you can see, we've made it. I mean, we're up over 20 miles, 25 miles here. It's been a multiracial, multicultural group of people who are marching to the State House. And they're doing this because of the Trump administration's actions around ICE. They're doing it because of the gerrymandering and redistricting issues that are happening across the country and here in North Carolina, here in the 1st District of North Carolina, where they've changed the district around in order to make it harder for Representative Don Davis to be reelected in what would end up being a act of disenfranchisement towards black voters. And so we've been out here all day today. We're gonna be out here all day tomorrow. We were out here all day yesterday. And we've got a few folks who we're gonna talk to who've been out here marching. And so let's see if we can grab a few folks here. Thank you for joining us here on Black Star Network. You mind introducing yourself?
My name is Susan Cordelette Jones.
All right, and what brought you out here today, Susan?
What brought me out? How about 100 things? But mainly that, you know, Love Forward is just such a great message for everyone, and we are living in such toxic, awful times. Something in my lifetime, I wake up every morning and I ask myself, what is happening? Like, you know, it's terrible. So this is intended to get us all back on track.
What is the message you would want to send to people around the country who might be watching and looking at North Carolina for what they should do next?
Well, first of all, I'm from New York.
So you came down here to join?
No, I live in North Carolina. We retired here, but people in blue states, those are the people I want to speak to. I want to speak to white progressive women. You have to get out. This isn't about Alex Preddy and Renee Good only. It's about immigrants. It's about babies being pulled from their mothers. It's about a future that is going to be bleak for your children and grandchildren. Get out there. You have to participate. You have to. There's no choice. And blue state folks, get out there. I'm from a blue state, and I didn't realize till I moved to the South how important this all is. I've always been active, but I'm more active now.
All right, folks, as you heard Wesley say, we will be broadcasting the march tomorrow and the huge rally taking place on Saturday as well. So tune in right here to the Black Star Network. All right, folks, that is it for me. I am about to shut this down. I got to head on out. Tamika Holyfield is having her annual NBA gospel concert. They're honoring a number of different people, so I'm going to be heading to check that out in about an hour. And so hopefully I'll have some interviews and stuff for you tomorrow. But folks, do us a favor. You want to continue to support the work that we do. Again, our team is there in North Carolina on the ground covering that event. Nobody else in Black-owned media provide the live coverage that we are providing, and they're not going to be covering it in full on Saturday. And so this is why we got to have Black-owned media. This is why we've got to be able to support us because, again, the work that we do, nobody else is doing. So you want to do so, join our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 people contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. And listen, if you can't handle that, we get it. There are people who have given us $40, $25, $20, $15, $10, $5, $1. And so people who have gone way above $50, $100, $200, $500, $1,000, $15,000 because our supporters, almost $37,000. They understand what this is about, and that is providing the relevant, critical news and information that our community needs. And so do us a favor. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to give you a cash app, use a Stripe QR code. You see it right here on the screen. If you use the same QR code for credit cards, checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung TV. And so check us all out there. Hey, if you want to get our products, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Our t-shirts, our wall art, our hats, all that good stuff. You can get Roland Martin Unfiltered gear, Black Star Network gear, all there on shopblackstarnetwork.com. And again, if you want to support the affirmation products, the other Black-owned businesses we have there, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, our marketplace segment. And again, when you buy products from there, you also supporting this show. This is another way for you can support this show and this network as well. Folks, support the app fan base. You can check that out as well and download that app as well. Let's grow a fan base to be a top social media app. We've got to have some new changes and some more stuff coming down the pipeline. You want to check it out. All right, coming up right now, Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton, her third show since we launched it. Of course, Second Opinion with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton. Fantastic health information. You definitely want to tune in for it as well. Folks, that's it. I appreciate it. I'll see you right here, Roland Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!